Welcome back to TECHMIMIC, where you can simply view, imitate, replicate, and get on with your day. If you have been using FreeBSD for some time, chances are that you might have noticed that the boot or startup screens look different on different machines. Also, you might have been wondering if it is possible to adjust the logo that is shown either on the text-based or on the more graphical startup screen. You will get a text-based startup screen with character-based ASCII art if you are on a BIOS-based system, and a graphical version with a high-resolution image if you are on a UEFI-based system. This is, however, a broad generalization, and it is not entirely accurate, because even on a BIOS machine, you can get the high-resolution screen with Visa BIOS extensions, but in general, this is the distinction. For the remainder of this video, I will call this a startup screen, others might call it a boot screen. Let's start with the graphical startup screen. This is the default screen with a default auto boot timer of 10 seconds. In the boot directory, there are a couple of files that have to do with the boot process. Loader.rc, loader.conf in the defaults subdirectory, and the loader.conf directly in the boot directory. The file loader.rc will process both loader.conf files during startup. Again, a generalization for the purposes of keeping things pragmatic. Let's have a look at the default loader.conf file. The file introduces itself as a file full of useful variables that you can set to change the default load behavior of your system, and that you should not edit this file, but instead place any customization in one of the loader_conf_ files. What they are is defined a few lines down, and it includes the other loader.conf file that we have seen earlier. So the best practice is to use that file. By not editing any of the defaults in this file, you won't lose any configuration during an update or upgrade of FreeBSD, and you will have the configuration conveniently in a separate file. It also makes for easier administration. Check this defaults loader.conf file if you want for inspiration, because there are loads and loads of customization options available. As we are instructed to make any changes in the file boot loader.conf, let's have a look there. I will use vi, but you can use any editor. Vi boot loader.conf. Depending on your local configuration, your version of this file might look different. So the default timeout of the startup screen is 10 seconds. Let's first remove that timeout. Add the line autoboot_delay and then a value. You can use 60 to lengthen the timeout to 1 minute, or of course you can make it shorter or longer. But by specifying no, the counter will completely disappear and booting won't progress until you make a selection. Save and exit the file, and in VI this is :WQ!! And reboot the machine to see the result of that. Indeed, there is no timer anymore. Excellent. Next, we are going to adjust the logo that is visible on the right hand side. In some of the earlier videos, viewers commented on my usage of the VI editor. I always show how to exit VI, but the one time I didn't, that got immediately picked up. Coming from an AIX background, for me VI or Vim is something I do automatically. But I fully understand that VI is not the easiest of editors, and you don't need all of that editing power for a simple configuration change. Because I really appreciate the interaction in the comments, and I do read all of them, of course, so thank you all. Let me show you something different this time. Luckily, by default, in FreeBSD, there is also something called the Easy Editor. You can check its manual with the command man-ee. Simply type EE and then the file you would like to edit. ee/boot/loader.conf. This file will open the friendlier Easy Editor with the explanation of the various shortcuts right at the top of the screen. To adjust the logo, add the line loader_logo, and here you can specify a couple of values, and we are going to try all of them. The first one is none, which of course removes the logo entirely. To save and exit a file in the Easy Editor, just hit Escape, and then this menu appears. Now hit Enter, and enter again to save the changes. So just hit Escape and enter twice. Reboot to see the changes. Now you have a startup screen without the main logo, only the top banner and no timeout. Now for the remainder of the various options. The next one is ORB BW. The default logo, the big circle with the devil ears, is called the ORB. Resulting in this, an ASCII-based black and white ORB. By removing BW, so just ORB as the value for loader logo, we get just what we saw earlier. Next up is a value of FBSD BW. An ASCII Art FreeBSD logo. And then we finally arrive at BSD BW. And when we change that to just BSD, using VI this time instead of the easy editor, it becomes a colored BSD, although the red color is very dim. But because almost everything can be adjusted in FreeBSD, also this can be adjusted, as you will see in a bit. Those are just the default options. Now let's have a look how to introduce a customized logo. The bundled logos are stored in the directory boot images. Here you can find FreeBSD-brand.png, the banner at the top of the startup screen, and the FreeBSD logo you get when specifying loader logo equals ORB or nothing, and then this will be the default logo. For additional artwork, on freebsd.org/art, the FreeBSD Art gallery is displayed, where you can download logos under the restrictions explained in the section Graphics Use. However, this page doesn't contain the artwork that I'm going to use in the startup screen. I've downloaded an image earlier that I have named BB for Beastie Boy. I will leave the source of this image, because clearly this is not my image, and the actual image itself on the TECHMIMIC GitHub page, linked below for your convenience. Easiest is to add this file to the boot images directory, so let me do that now. Beastie Boy is now ready to go from the boot images directory. Once this is done, I will log in again as root. Now navigate to the directory boot Lua. Lua is a lightweight, high-level programming language designed mainly for embedded use in applications, according to Lua's Wikipedia page. In this directory there are several .lua files. Easiest is to just copy the existing gfx-orb.lua to a new file that I will name gfx-bb.lua to keep the naming convention consistent. Then edit the new file. In this file you can see the ASCII Art ORB logo with various color coding. Ignore all of this and go to the line that starts with image and replace FreeBSD-logo-ref.png with the new file bb.png. Save and exit the file, and out of habit I will double check the changes. And indeed the file bb.png is there. And the last step is to go back to bootloader.conf and assign loader logo a value of bb. Only the file name, the extension is not needed here. To recap, the file that you want to use is placed in boot images, and then it got referenced in boot lua gfx-bb.lua, and right here again in bootloader.conf. If all looks good, save the changes and reboot. And there's Beastie Boy. If your logo fails to display after a reboot, try to make sure that there are no typos or faulty references in the files mentioned. Also, it is somewhat picky with the image format. This is all for the startup screen for UEFI systems that you can further explore by playing around with the options available for inspiration in boot defaults loader.conf. And we get back to BIOS systems later. What we can also do is add a so-called splash screen that will appear after the startup screen and just before FreeBSD loads. For this, go back to bootloader.conf and add the two lines boot_mute equals yes and splash equals and then the full path to an image, for example the FreeBSD orb that we have seen earlier. Save and exit and reboot. There's the startup screen and there's the new splash screen. Despite this being a colored image, you will notice that on FreeBSD 14.1 this will be displayed in black and white. For the recently released FreeBSD 14.2 there is an update to this. So here I have a second system with FreeBSD 14.2 where I will add the exact same lines to bootloader.conf. And there it is in full color. Where the difference in the actual text FreeBSD below the orb is coming from, I haven't researched, and I would like to leave that as an exercise to the viewer. At the FreeBSD Phabricator, located at reviews.freebsd.org, one can search for code reviews and the likes. For example, when I search for the word splash, I get various articles. Including a document how to use the splash screen with VT that references the file share men4 splash.4. And sure enough, in FreeBSD 14.2 the splash men page is updated accordingly, providing detailed instructions. Not just for the splash screen, but also for screensavers. Once you have searched for something, you can further filter down the list of search results. This is also how I have found the article that describes how now only PNG is supported and decoding is done in loader and not in the kernel. To come back to the startup screen for BIOS-based systems, now that you know how to make the changes, let me show you the available options. By default, there is also the colored FreeBSD orb and the 10 seconds timeout. So let me disable the timeout and the logo. Resulting in this. Then the exact same as you have seen before in the UEFI machine startup screens. For example, orb, and beastie, but with better colors this time. Although you can't use a high resolution image here, you can replace or adjust the ASCII art. For inspiration, one could visit the ASCII Art Archive at asciiart.eu. If we go back to the boot Lua directory and edit the corresponding Lua file, gfx-beastie.lua, you can see the ASCII art right there, complete with color coding. Let's close it. And open the gfx-beastie black-and-white.lua file, which is easy to edit because of the directly visible ASCII art. Just make any changes here and save and exit the file. Don't forget to point bootloader.conf to the correct file, reboot, and now you can enjoy the startup screen with your new artwork. That's it. Hope it helped, and if it did, please like the video and keep it up. Until next time, bye!